Great. Thank you for joining us today for this panel discussion, where we're going to talk about how to achieve asset management and service excellence for utilities operations. Before I kickstart, I really would like to welcome the panelists we have today. We've got Carol Johnston, who is our VP of Product at IFS. We have Colin Beanie with us, who is the VP for Energy, Utilities and Resources at IFS, and Simon Orchard, who is the Industry Architect for Energy, Utilities and Resources. Let me give you a quick background in terms of the discussion we're going to hold today with our panelists. So as we're working in the utility sector, we do understand that it's critical for utilities to not only manage complex network assets, but also to ensure the asset performance management is optimal. All resources, including parts, labors, contracts, are managed efficiently while optimizing the last mile of service delivery and customer satisfaction, which means that utilities must be agile and responsive to their customers, employees, and the communities they serve. And in today's panel discussion, I will be talking to these experts here about improving network reliability, asset uptime through predictive maintenance. Secondly, about optimizing costs and efficiency of field or mobile operations while addressing the sustainability goals. And third, about transformation of customer experience and customer service as the customer's expectations change and the competition increases. So without further ado, let me ask the panelists the first question, which is talking about what are the industry trends that we see in utilities today when we talk about asset management and service excellence. So over to you, Colin, to kickstart that discussion.
Thanks, Karen. I mean, you know, first and foremost, there's a hell of a lot that's going on in the utilities industry. A lot of that is affected by the general climate change challenges that are happening around the world. There's a real drive towards more sustainable business models for the organizations. You know, customers are demanding that the energy that is supplied is sourced from greener providers, for example. What this means as well is that the drive towards digital innovation, specifically around things like asset management, increases even more so. So, you know, concepts such as the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, you know, all of these sort of concepts wherein the utilities can monitor their assets very accurately, start to predict failure. They're all driving a real desire towards ensuring that both the assets that they have, that in some respects are aging as well. So there's, you know, a whole requirement about ensuring that there's resilience of supply, and that resilience of supply is affected, of course, by things like weather challenges that we see, and of course that age of infrastructure. So, you know, it's a very complex environment, as I say, and sustainability is at the forefront today for utilities, I believe.
Yeah, no, that's very true, Colin. And I heard somebody mention this the other day. It was a great quote, but I think somebody said that, you know, the last time we had an outage, no customer ever phones up to the utility and says, well, that's fantastic. It's been so reliable. It's the first time I've had an outage in 3 or 4 years. Every time it happens, it's the most horrific event going, and people are always anxious to get the power or the water or the gas flowing again. So it's really moved to that, you know, any outage is unacceptable, and that paints a very complex picture for the utility and how to deliver that level of service excellence. And, you know, while conducting asset management isn't exactly a new trend, it's of course a highly regulated part of any utilities operations. I do see a move towards more risk-based management programs in the last decade or so to deal with some of the challenges you were talking about related to, you aging infrastructure. I mean, large parts of the grid have been in place for a long time, whether underground or overhead. And when you factor in increasingly adverse weather conditions, from wildfires around the world to drought conditions and tornadoes and all of these severe weather events that are starting to happen, things like diverse asset ownership and new operational models as a result of some of that adoption to renewables and microgrids that you were talking about, it paints a pretty complex picture that utilities are having to deal with. And if you throw in the pressure to reduce costs, I mean, a lot of the utility operations are highly regulated, as I said, so there's rate caps and constraints on how much the utility is able to charge for the services they're providing. So there's more and more of that drive to reduce overall operational costs to maintain the profitability. And you can see the need for utilities to be a lot more strategic in how they budget or how they spend their budget dollars in order to get the biggest return for every asset dollar that they spend. So we see risk-based asset management as certainly being a very effective way in assigning a score to assets based on the criticality of their function in the grid, as well as various risk factors such as expected lifespan, the operating conditions that that asset is operated in, maintenance history. So what has been the warranty recalls and service calls out for that particular asset that will predict its need to prioritize investments in either maintaining or replacing that asset. And of course, all of that seems like a no-brainer, but I think it takes a lot of data collection, IT tools, and analysis to be effective. And a lot of utilities have started to appoint dedicated asset risk managers to manage these very complex programs and to make sure that they have the focus on investing in the right things.
Yes, and we need to be able to collect all of that data and make sure that we're intelligent with the use of that data as well. The easier we can understand the data, the better the decisions we can make. Another major trend change recently in utilities or globally everywhere is the new revolution of electric vehicles that is coming and also managed differently in different areas and different regions around the world. So a bit like the smart meter revolution, we will find that different regions have different rules and different methods for electric vehicles, but in reality, for the end consumer, they're expecting to have an electric vehicle within their next vehicle, or if not the vehicle after that. And utilities need to be ready for this. We need to be ready to provide the charging points, be it at home, at work, in a car park, or on a lamppost. And we also, as utilities, we also have a large fleet ourselves, which we need to manage and obviously charge our own vehicles as well. So, for example, scheduling the charging of the vehicle actually during the day, as if there's long drives involved between the jobs, and actually recognizing that in the schedule.
Yeah, I've joined the EV revolution myself. I bought my first electric vehicle this year and quite happy with it. But, we have all that range anxiety, both as, individual consumers, but certainly, as you mentioned, Simon, having that fleet that now is reliant on making sure it's charged overnight, it's ready to go into operation the next day and serve for a full day of operation. That puts another pressure on planning for the day's work.
It's a pressure, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for providing a service to fit those meters. Some of the vehicles and some of the regions will allow for batteries to also be installed to take the power back and put that either back into the grid or use it locally as well. Some suppliers are looking at actually offering it as almost like an Uber-like service to charge your vehicle, where you can use an app, to say, actually, it's me and it's this car, so I'd like to have it charged quickly, please, and I don't mind paying this tariff. There's going to be quite a revolution. Different regions will be ahead of others in terms of thinking, and different regions will have different requirements as well. but it's also an opportunity.
Yeah, and
I agree.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and you mentioned having those EV charging stations up on the poles. I don't know if you saw National Grid's pilot program around that, but very innovative, where they don't have to have a dedicated parking stall any longer for these EV charging stations. It's up on the power pole, and you can just connect into it with drop-down cables from an app.
Right, and similar to that, I've also seen recently, this week in fact, including integration with the parking apps. So the parking apps are now saying that there's EV charging, but it actually helps with engineers who might ironically be installing a charging point to actually be able to find a parking space before they get to the site that they're going to, and even charge their vehicle whilst they're there as well.
No, I agree, Simon. I think they're fantastic examples. I mean, that, you know, we've seen even with the car parking apps, you know, how they have improved, how simple they are to operate. And if you're going to include that capability of charging your vehicle within a parking app or within a service visit, and then actually include that sort of constraint, if you like, within the scheduling and the optimization of the resourcing and the prediction of how long that job is going to take, and thus, you know, the subsequent jobs and the follow-up jobs, you know, that really is the sort of innovation that is going to come very soon. And as you mentioned, it's here in some locations around the globe.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you. That's very, very interesting first part of our discussion. I'd like to move on to the next part. Over to you, Simon. We see that utilities companies have to obviously combine asset replacement activity with maintenance, with customer and reactive services, and there's typically different or separate systems and processes for these types of activities. You know, this is obviously not very efficient, and this might mean that there's multiple systems, there's lack of visibility. So over to you, Simon, in terms of you know, your experience within utilities, how do you see utilities leveraging disruptive technologies such as IoT and that having that data-driven approach for asset improvement and maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, the demand gets, thank you, Kenny, the demand gets more difficult, and we as consumers get more challenging, but luckily the technology is keeping with us as well. So yes, we've seen for many years now helicopters checking the lines, etc., for the SAG, so it wouldn't be new, for example, to see a helicopter fly by. What is new is the fact that there's not two people in that helicopter anymore. There's one, there's just the pilot, because it's a camera that's underneath that is able to intelligently read where the line is and actually highlight itself, identify and highlight issues itself, and then send that back to the maintenance system as part of that intelligent data that we were talking about earlier, to make a decision on whether work needs to be taken there, and if it's a decision that we do need human interaction for, obviously it's taken a video or a photo that's then held against that asset and date stamped as well, to see what to actually look at the detail and decide, make a decent decision. The same thing's now happening in water as well. So yes, we see helicopters, it's easy to see, but the water pipes mainly and usually are underground. But with LiDAR technology now, we're seeing water companies use what's called survey boats, almost like a drone that can go down a drain that can go down the drain, and do the same really, record the data, inspect the pipes, and in the future also actually be able to do small repairs whilst there. That's allowing a no dig approach. Digging up the roads is intrusive for the public, us as consumers. It's also costly for the utility as well. So if we can use this technology to not only inspect but repair as well where possible, then it's a cost-effective answer for all of us.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the right points, I think, that we've been discussing with our customers as well as we talk to them. So coming over to you, Colin, talking about the transformation that is happening within the utility sector, there's obviously quite a lot of focus on optimizing costs, you know, and making the field operations more efficient. So what trends are you seeing within the utilities that you'd like to highlight for our viewers today?
Well, I think one of the things that is certainly being considered and needs to be considered in that effective scheduling of resources is things like, you know, the emissions that you may be pushing out from the vehicles that you're using. So you know, drawing on that sustainability initiative, you know, ensuring that we are minimizing the journeys that we need to make. So in some respects, that capability to provide some sort of self-service, utilizing you know, augmented reality or that sort of capability, so that the expert, the technician, the engineer could talk the customer, you know, assuming that this is a relatively simple type of service call out or service visit, you know, the expert or the technician, the engineer could talk the customer through some sort of initial diagnosis, all via the customer's handheld phone or tablet or laptop. So the engineer is able to point and say, well, that's the switch. Looks like, you know, you might want to reset that. Let's see what happened. I actually had that exact experience recently with I've actually got quite a complex heating system where I live, and it stopped working. And I spoke to the service company, and they offered me a call out at a very expensive rate. But the guy was able to talk me through what to do, and he said, you know, just remove that panel, have a look at some of those trip switches, and maybe if you reset them, you know, it will necessitate the journey not being required. So that's just one way in which I think organisations can better manage their resources and better optimise, you know, the scheduling, ensuring that, you know, if engineers are required and a truck is required to roll and put a team out onto the streets, you know, they're able. They've got all of the right tools, they've got all of the right skills, they've got all of the procedural documentation and legacy information that they need to ensure that the issue gets fixed first time round, and thus, you know, we avoid the second truck roll and the second visit. You know, that's critically important as well.
And I've talked to engineers recently in the last few years who said that they went to school and was trained as being an engineer, but now they feel like they're an IT consultant, a bit like myself, in that, you know, the technology's moved on now. They're actually installing computers on people's houses, etc. And so they've needed support as well. So on a more complex situation, even if there was an initial triage with the customer, the engineers need support as well. And if this can be done, or it can be done, using merged reality, using mobile phone devices, helping the engineer through, then yes, we're saving a second journey at the same time to the same place. And then the next step is to be able to report the positive result of that not having that additional journey, that we used the best optimized schedule for the day, and being able to report this as we report that we are sustainable organizations across all industries, but especially in energy.
Yeah, no, and it's so important. I mean, we do all the best planning, right? You try to get the right team, the right skills, the right equipment out into the job at the right work location. But we all know that sometimes the best plans go awry, and the job that you expected is not the job that you find when you're, or there's something else to be done when you arrive out in the field. So more and more we're seeing, providing access to tools and technology like augmented reality, where I can call home and get some expert guidance or assistance for something I didn't expect, or even just simply having IT systems connected to each other so that the field workers, when they arrive on site, can access additional documentation, create work orders in the field, and really extend the capabilities that they have through integrated technologies.
You're spot on, Carol. I mean, one of the things that I think is critically important if you're after, looking after networks, for example, water or electricity, is being able to geospatially locate the issues that you find. So being able to seamlessly move from the job into some geospatial capabilities to be able to say, this is exactly where the job is, so that when that is reported into the back office, the follow-up team or the follow-up activity, doesn't spend time sort of wandering around looking for the fault.
Yeah, and they can also be warned about the angry bull in the field where the meter is located, and some of those worker safety issues that you want to make sure that you pass along.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a brilliant discussion, everybody. So let's move on to the next this section of discussion, which is around customer service and customer experience. And again, I know we've touched a bit upon the siloed nature of how utilities have different systems for things, where basically having separate systems can lead to poor customer service. Perhaps there can be a piece of information that is being discussed in the conversation but is not really going and reaching to the customer service staff, which causes that. So Carol, over to you in terms of sharing some of the thoughts or stories that you hear from our clients, who talk about some of the critical areas that could be addressed when it comes to customer service. Also maybe sharing some of the highlights or discuss some differences between customer experience and customer service for utilities, because I know sometimes we use these terms interchangeably, but actually, is there a difference between the two? And then how a modern solution approach can really help tackle some of these challenges that utilities operations face at the moment.
Yeah, and that's a huge topic, but thank you, Kanu. And I think, there is a difference between, customer service, which arguably is a, one-way engagement. I need something, you provide a service, and we have that interaction, versus an experience, which is more holistic and ongoing. And I think the relationship that utilities have with their customers is evolving. I don't think it's enough anymore to simply provide, good service when a customer contacts the utility and needs a, move-in service or has a question about a bill. It's about proactively engaging with customers, whether they're business or consumer, to deliver an excellent experience. And I mean, the world we live in is fast-paced. I think we're all dealing with that, even in the COVID era, where we've all slowed down and worked from home. There is a lot more demands on people and expectations that we have more interactive connections and conversations. And I think a lot of this is fueled in large part by technology. We're sitting here today having a conversation from around the world with both our audience and even the panelists, fueled by technology. And we're all reliant on the finite resources that a utility provides. But at the same time, and I think Colin mentioned this earlier, there's a growing awareness of our impact as humans on the planet. And it's never been greater. And most of us want to do our part to both reduce our consumption of those finite resources, but also our individual carbon footprint and the carbon footprint of the utility and other services that we consume from them. So we can see customers really, wanting to engage and partner with their utility in unique and innovative ways. It's no longer enough just to get that service from them. I want to engage in reducing the carbon footprint, engage in being part of the solution, and really partnering with the utility to have more of a collaborative engagement and experience. Whether that's, rolling out renewables or microgrids as a business partner in partnership with the utility. to entering into shared asset ownership and maintenance and operational agreements of those micro, able to have that agreement with the utility during heavy load periods, being able to island or share renewable energy with other consumers in the region, both to reduce risk and improve reliability for everybody of that shared resource. And I think it's going to be critical as we go forward for IT and operational systems to have those in place to help utilities manage these very complex now two-way relationships that they have with their customers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Carol. I mean, I think the way in which consumers consider utility companies is going to continue to change. They are expecting an experience that is similar or better that they get from the sort of retail providers, where things turn up exactly as they want. It's easy to buy the service, it's easy to understand the pricing, it's easy to understand when the item may be delivered, it's relatively straightforward to return, so the whole experience is seamless and just works. I've read an interesting story recently of a water utility in the UK where this clearly didn't happen. They typically if they're going to, and Simon talked about if a utility is going to dig up the road, they typically put up some traffic lights, they close out the road, they put up signs, and they carry out the work. Well, this particular utility, or maybe one of its service providers, put up all of the traffic light systems and closed out the road, but nothing happened. Nothing happened for about 2 weeks, and people started to notice that nothing was going on. And the utility was contacted, and it had to admit that there was some error in where the job had been scheduled, and the traffic system had been put up in the wrong place. And they've been fined. They've been actually heavily fined for closing off a road when they didn't need to and not executing any work. So that again is just another level of complexity of scheduling and optimization and systems integrating and talking to each other to ensure the customer experience. It's still a customer experience if you're stuck behind a traffic light and you realize that no work's going on. That clouds your judgment of your utility provider for sure.
And that's another one where different regions, different areas of the world have different rules as well. We in the UK, they're quite they're very strict rules that there the mistakes being made. In the US, we have the 811 rule before digging as well. So we need to make sure as an EAM solution we can integrate with the various tools that are available globally and required in different regions. And for me, it's made my life easier a bit, really, in that the integration has now become easier as the expectations have got bigger. It's quite interesting to see how much has changed in the last 5 years, but really, or 10 years, if you think 12 years ago, it was the first iPhone. So it really is quite short that things have changed. And we all have to keep up with this because the demands and the expectations change as well. Good examples now there would be whether we're delivering a service or a product, that us as consumers expect to be kept up to date with what's happening. Where is my goods being delivered from an internet website, or where is my engineer being coming with my service? And that's become much easier in that time with the technology as well. So we can now obviously send an SMS, a text message, or an email, or even have an online portal updating on where the technician is on their route throughout the day.
Yeah, very, very valid. So obviously technology is going to determine any organization's survival or even thriving in these challenging, changing times, serving as a foundational requirement for the health and success of every utility. So really concluding, asking a roundup to everybody here, you know, all the panelists, about how do we feel IFS is bringing together this approach to help utilities achieve asset management and service excellence through their operations. So anybody, please kickstart the conversation, but obviously this will be our conclusion to the discussion we've had today.
I think the point that you make about asset management and service excellence, kind of, is if you overlay onto that as well, you know, asset resilience and infrastructure and renewal and the whole sort of project life cycle of assets, the project asset and service life cycle of assets, you know, we are unique in having all of that capability to manage all of that in the one solution. And you know, I think that separates us from the competition, and you know, is a unique offer, if you like.
The other important thing, and whether it's for a user of IFS or whether it's for the consumer as well, is to be able to the need to minimize the amount of training involved. You don't get trained on how to use the apps that you've got on your touchscreen device at home. You know, you download the app yourself and you use it. So luckily, as things have progressed as well in technology, the usability's got a lot easier as well. It's very difficult to make a mistake now, and so you need less guidance, which is great.
Yeah, no, that's great, Simon and Colin. I think we've talked a lot about the rapid changes we're seeing that are impacting the utility operations, and you know, I think as Darwin proved, being able to adapt to change enables the strong, or at least the smart, to not only survive but thrive. And you know, we humans, as an evolved species, arguably an evolved species, certainly have the benefit of being able to adopt or adapt our environment, you know, at least to some degree to suit us. But charting the right course is going to take, you know, access to information, careful analysis of what that information is telling us in order to know, you know, which is the right path to choose and take as we go forward. And I strongly believe that investing in enterprise tools that are able to not only accurately capture information, but make it available to the people that need access to that. So breaking down those silos, whether they be technology and data silos or business processes and people silos, to ensure, you know, the data can be acted on and made available for analysis to help us make the right choices as we move forward, both, you know, as a utility, but also as the utility partners.
Great, thank you everybody for very engaging discussion today. Thanks for your time, everyone, for listening in. If you do have questions, you want to learn more about the work we're doing with utilities globally, just get in touch with us. Our contact details are on this page, or else we will continue our conversations in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.